I'm Bob LaFlamme, and I would like to first off say thank you to the North Brookfield Haston Free Public Library for allowing us to use this beautiful space. I'd like to first introduce Mark Calloway. You may have seen his truck outside. Mark is from Belgium, came to the United States in 1998, working for a large boiler manufacturer, and since has done a lot of work in industrial type endeavors. Got interested in wood and wood pellets, and then started his own company about, what, 5 years ago, Mark?
2005.
2005, so it's been a while. So he is the importer for Windhager boilers. Okay, Windhager North America is Mark Calloway. So he is going to be answering questions on the technical side of these boilers in this presentation. I'd like you also to meet my wife over there, Susan. She is a fourth generation of the Crowley family. So I married into the business. Her great-grandfather, Charles Crowley, started the business as a coal company delivering out of the back of a horse-drawn wagon. And his son, Jack, started in 1930 with oil and coal. And so we're transitioning into wood, going back to kind of a more local product. Is there anybody I missed? I'd like also to introduce the Alfreds, Mark and Ruth. They have installed a BioWin unit in their home here in North Brookfield. So we have some firsthand experience. They've had it in since October, I think it was. So they've got a half of a winter under their belt with this thing, and so they might be willing to answer a few questions about that experience. Now, we're going to get to the agenda here. We got a lot on the plate. We're going to talk about the difference between pellet stoves and pellet boilers, because maybe some of you don't know what the difference is. We're going to specifically talk about the Windhager BioWin system, okay, because this is a central heating system. It's a boiler, so it does all your forced hot water, or it can work in conjunction with a duct system as well. Ideal home that would be suitable for a central pellet heating system. Ideal owner, bag versus bulk, what a bulk delivery truck is and how that works. We'll talk about emissions from wood burning pellets, efficiency, cleaning and maintenance, cost of heating with wood pellets versus heating with oil, expected savings, the system components, costs for those, overall installed cost for a central pellet heating system, expected payback. We'll give you an example. We have a local example to use, and then we'll take questions. But as I said, this is informal, so if you have a question that's pertinent at the time, raise your hand, call on you, but I'll just be prepared. I'll repeat the question. Okay, so first we'll start with the pellet stove. How many people have pellet stoves now? Okay, so pellets have become one of the most popular ways to heat now. It's about half, I mean, just roughly throwing that out there. It's about half the cost of heating with oil currently. And pellet stoves heat a space within the house. It's radiant heat. Okay, they have blowers that move the heat out, but that's really what it is. Like a wood stove, you don't have to have a chimney. They can be direct vented out of the sidewall, pretty reasonably priced. Okay, you can install one of these anywhere between $4,000 and, depending on how fancy a stove you get, maybe $6,000, $7,000, I would guess. Okay, so pellet stoves, you fill them on the top. You have a hopper that you open up and you pour in a bag. That's how it works. Okay, so you have to use bags with a pellet stove, and they radiate heat to an area. It's not central heating. Okay, it's just heating a space. So then a pellet boiler is like your oil boiler. If you have a forced hot water system, you have a boiler. Okay, if you have a hydro air system, you have a boiler, because the hydro is the water that makes the heat that runs through a fan coil, that the fan blows the heat into your ductwork. Okay, so this is a boiler. It has piping in the back that will connect to your existing baseboard, radiant system, however, whatever you have, okay? So similar to a pellet stove in it burns pellets, and it has an auger feed, and it has blowers to get the air in, and Mark will go over that more. But it's also similar to your oil boiler because it's a boiler, okay? It's not steam, okay? These do not work as a steam boiler. This is forced hot water, okay? Windhager does not make a steam system. And then, of course, your hot water gets distributed by the baseboard or by what we call a fan coil unit or an air handler, okay, into your ductwork system, okay? So here's the Windhager again. We'll cut away so you can see this side that's a vacuum system that will pull pellets out of a bulk bin and drop them into this holding, which is about, what, 350 pounds? 320. 320 pounds of pellets can be held in this space. The auger brings them up and drops them into the burn pot. Again, Mark's going to spend more time with that. And you'll certainly be able to come up and check this unit out and see the components. So this is the Windhager boiler. So I'm going to turn this over to Mark now to talk about what this is.
So I believe everybody knows what this is. It's like a small forge. The guy operates the air bellow, pushes or blows air under the fire, and that's how you melt this coal here, and you heat up the steel. It's basically the same. The fuel comes out of the day hopper, gets harder up and falls in the burn pot. There is an air pin sitting here that pulls air, primary air, in this air pin, and that creates your basic fire here. Once the flame is established, there is some secondary air that comes through these holes that cleans basically your flame, burns off everything what's not burned over here. Then this smoke goes up, and it goes over the heat exchanger in the back where all the water is, and that heats the water. So by the time the smoke comes out of the flue collar, it's around between 180 degrees and 230. So very, very cold, very cool. Most of the energy is transferred into the water. This is the ignition. It's automatically ignited. So whenever there is a heat call from the thermostat in any of your rooms, it will give a signal to the boiler, and it will start the ignition phase. So it's similar to your pellet stove. It's an electric element. This one has 4 of them. It's pretty robust. It's also some redundancy built in. If one breaks down, there's still another pair that picks it up. So this ignites the pellets. It starts to, it gets red hot, and then the air comes over it. So it's like a hairdryer. It blows very hot air on the pellets that are sitting here. That's how you ignite those pellets. Yep.
Mark, you have a question?
If he was talking about losing power,
Yep.
can that system be hooked up if you have an outdoor generator?
Yes.
And it can be hooked up to that to start it going then,
Yep.
if we lose our power?
I think it's on the one page in the brochure how much power it draws. So when it's in full operation, I believe it only draws around 45 watts. It's the last line there. Only at ignition. So it's a very short time frame, maybe 2 or 3 minutes to ignite. It draws around 350 watts, but only for 4 or 5 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you.
The heart of the operation here is this sensor. It's called the flame temperature sensor. It's kind of the latest technology they use in Europe. So what it does is it always measures how hot your flame is, and if it tries to get the maximum out of the burning of the pellets by injecting more air, less pellets. So it always tries to maximize that temperature. And this is fundamentally different from the traditional pellet stove. It just drops them in and it burns them, but there is no control system to get the most out of the pellets. Also, if it's building up with some ashes or whatever over time, it doesn't do anything to the sensitivity. It's a thermocouple type K, so it really, if it's completely enclosed in ashes, still it picks up that temperature and it will fulfill its function. This is the combustion fan, so it basically draws air in over into that burn pot. So it keeps the interior of the firebox under the negative pressure. It's a safety thing, so no gases like CO can escape out of the firebox. It's the same with the pellet stove. Works on the same concept, but the pellet stove has a switch, vacuum switch. So from the moment the vacuum breaks, it stops. Yes?
The air that you're sucking in, is that coming from the house or is it coming from an outside source?
It comes, most of the time it comes from inside the house. We have adapters for outside air, but the research that they do in Austria, they're getting away from taking outside air because it's just bringing in -10 or 0 degree air. It's going to throw off your combustion. So more and more they're going back to inside air.
You're venting out through the regular
Chimney.
flue. Through the chimney,
Regular
right?
flue, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are not direct vent. These are chimney vent.
Yeah.
A couple of the questions were, if the power goes out, is the igniter going to go out? The igniter only runs for a short period of time, just to ignite maybe 3-4 minutes, if that. And so also you can use these with a generator, home generator, just like you would, say, a Royal boiler or any other kind of heating system. As Mark said, they are getting away from pulling in outside air dedicated to the burning, to combustion, just because it cools down the flame and creates some efficiency issues. So now, I guess I want to take a little break from what I was going to say and say that you need to think about a unit like this as the efficiency of oil, the efficiency and safety of oil with the economy of wood. So we've kind of gone back to a local fuel source. I mean, we've been burning wood in New England for years. In fact, there was a time when we pretty much used up all of the wood. If you see pictures of the old 1800s, early 1900s, there weren't a lot of trees left. So now we've got the trees back, and we can use them in any form. There are many forms that we still use them in, but the latest rage is pellets. And the reason that we do like pellets is because we can make a more efficient fire. We can get the air to all parts of that fire with a burn pot like Mark just showed you. So the economy of wood with the efficiency and safety of an oil or gas unit. Also, I think that there are more mills and more pellets becoming available. So I think that you're going to see these kinds of units become more and more popular. Yes, Eb?
You know the government and what's being run in Washington. One of the things that they brought up, that they're going to try to cut out all wood burning. Will that fall in this category?
Not at all. When we get into the emission side, you'll see that these put out very little particulate matter. They're very carbon neutral, so no. That will not be an issue, doesn't matter what is going on in Washington.
I don't trust the government.
Okay, well, fine. But I don't think you have to worry in this particular case. There have been wood burning issues. Mostly that had to do with wood boilers and so on.
Yeah, I
This is a
understand where
very
they're
clean
coming
fire
from.
here. Very clean fire. So.
But you know what happens in Washington. I don't have to tell you.
Oh, well, we won't go there. Yes?
On electricity, is it equal as an oil burner? or a pellet burner for drawing electricity?
Oh,
To
it is
operate.
probably comparable to a pellet stove, maybe somewhere in between?
This machine, no, it's 45 watt, I think, so it's about, I would say, a quarter of a pellet stove.
Very efficient, okay. The fan, is it very loud, or is it just like,
No, you don't hear it.
you don't hear it?
Just,
Oh,
just the filling of the day hopper.
mhm.
That's like a vacuum cleaner, but you can program that it does that at any specific time of the day, like midnight or 10 o'clock in the morning. Maybe we
When you're not home, that's when you
yes,
put it on.
exactly. We can probably demonstrate that later.
Okay,
So, but it's a vacuum cleaner, the same noise.
same noise.
Yeah.
So we've gone back to wood, old way of heating, but yet with a lot more efficiency and a lot more safety. So that's what I want you to keep in mind in this presentation is that this is wood, it's economical, but it's also very efficient. The emissions are very low. So the technology that has gone into this unit is very impressive. So anyway, the ideal home. And so we're looking at how much could you possibly save, okay? What's your best savings? The ideal home would be the home that's gonna save the most, okay? Currently heated with an expensive fuel, oil or propane. An old, inefficient system. You're gonna save no matter whether you change that back over to oil or you're gonna save more if you go to pellets, but you're going to have a savings because you have an old, inefficient system that has to be replaced. And the boiler is up for replacement. And the home has a lot of square footage, okay? We have different models of these, so you can, and these can be dialed in to be whatever number of BTUs that you need. Home is properly insulated, so if you are considering changing to a pellet boiler system, you should consider getting your insulation taken care of first. And the home energy savings upgrades are maxed out. In other words, you've done everything you can to tighten up that house with windows, doors, etc. So the ideal owner is somebody who wants to save money on their heating bill, has a system that's the most fuel efficient, using a renewable fuel, fuel that has stable prices, okay? Pellet prices do not change. They don't have the big swings that, say, oil, propane do. Wants a fuel that is produced locally. You can buy pellets that are produced in British Columbia, but the most popular pellets are produced here locally. Doesn't want to handle pellet bags. Not necessarily. You can handle pellet bags if you want to. This thing doesn't have to be on there. You can just dump in bags in the top. It'll save you a little bit of money on this system. Wants a system that requires little maintenance. If you're going to be heating with wood, there's going to be maintenance involved. You're going to have to understand the basics of how it works and do some cleaning of the thing, emptying of ash. So of all of the pellet boiler systems out there, this one is the most maintenance free. I can tell you, there's not that much work to these units. And you want a fuel that's environmentally friendly, okay? And these pellets are. So you have options. You can feed it by bag. As you can see, the top will open up and you can pour in bags. Or you can have bulk delivery to a bin and scoop them out and pour them in without handling bags. And you can have, so with the bag option, you can see this whole vac unit is not on either of these. And one has an oil backup. So that was a question. Can I keep my oil? And you can. The thing is, what you need is a flue that is lined for a pellet unit. These do not direct vent. You could direct vent. If you only have one flue available, you could direct vent your oil burner and put this to side in the lined flue. So those are your options as far as pellet backup. Oil backup, excuse me.
So you need two separate flues then?
Excuse me?
Yeah, because you're going to be using two different kind of sources of
of fuel. So
Right, you cannot put two
in one, yeah.
separate sources of fuel into the same fuel.
That's correct.
It's not cool. And now we'll get into bulk options. So this is the European model. They will build a storage room for pellets, okay? And so what they have is a pickup unit like this that will bring the pellets out of the bottom, up through a hose system, and into, through this vac, into the day bin. And so this is how it works. And you can see the supply and return tubing that goes. It's a 3-inch tube, and it can go, I think the maximum is what, 80 feet or so. So your bin could be away from where you store from your boiler. You do need to have a dry cellar. You don't want to have these in a really wet cellar because the pellets are going to get moist. They're going to turn back into sawdust because that's what these pellets are. It's just wood that's been all mushed up and then put through these presses at extreme pressure. So, and it's 100% wood that is just compacted and broken off into usually about 3/4 to 1/2 inch size, okay? And so if they get moist, they go back to being sawdust, and then they're no good. They're unusable, and it's a nightmare if you had a bin that got wet pellets in it. So we were talking earlier about a bin locally that is a metal bin, okay? And it supplies and returns through here, and so much like an oil system, you'll have a 4-inch supply and return out your sill where the delivery truck will come and connect to, and they'll blow them in and fill that bin. Typically, they're 3.5 tons that they'll take at a time. And so you can see the pickup unit, the return and the feed coming out of the bottom back to the top here, okay? So that's the metal bin that is an option. Well, the one that we installed here in North Brookfield was 92 feet by 84 feet by 70, inches, excuse me. 92 inches, 84 inches, so 7 feet, a little over, under 8 feet, and then 6 feet tall. And we had to have it that short because the cellar height was so low. Okay, so cellar height makes issues sometimes too. Okay, judging from this, it looks pretty square. Typically, a 3-ton bin that's square is 7 by 7 by 7. 7 feet wide, 7 feet long, 7 feet tall.
Why do they have a return on that? Doesn't it feed the thing as it needs it?
Yeah, so the return loosens up the pellets. It blows air there and it loosens it up so
I
it
see. Oh, yeah.
can suck them.
Yeah, I didn't know if it, does that warm them up a little bit too by going around through the thing?
No.
I didn't know if that was something.
Actually, well, when you're filling a bulk bin,
Yeah.
and when you feel the fill pipe, the friction from those pellets coming in, it's pretty warm. I mean, nothing to start fire or anything, but it's pretty warm. And the other thing to note is there is dust with these and could cause an explosion. So every bin and pellet delivery system needs to be grounded, properly grounded. Okay, that's in the code and required, and we have done that.
Maybe show the red
Good. Oh,
flexible,
yeah.
so that the grounding is integrated in the...
okay, yes, you'll see there's a little grounding wire here that runs all the way through, and so when this attaches to the metal of the bin and the metal of the hopper here, then that's grounded, and so it can be properly grounded to the system, to the home grounding. But also, not just this is grounded, but also the supply and return here. So it's grounded both ways, because there will be dust, and
And it
dust
also-
can explode.
It also takes the static electricity away from the dust, so inside the hose, so that the dust doesn't explode, basically. Yeah.
Without the bulk option, how much does the unit hold?
320 pounds,
320
so it'd be about 8 bags.
3-4 days. depending.
So if you fill that thing, how long is it gonna run? It's like asking how big a dog is, but given,
Depends on your home.
well, given, you know, proper installation and all the rest of it, there must be an average here.
You can certainly go,
Mark, you know how many bags translated? Many bags per day, 2, 3?
you started by dumping in the bag before the bin was finished, so.
Mine was probably half a bag a day, starting in October, and around November, December, it's probably a bag a day.
So that's gonna run you quite a few days. I mean, Mark's home is kind of the ideal home, well insulated, maxed out, and, you know, so his usage is very low.
How many square feet?
But, are you about 1,800?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you keep the thermostat on?
We had forced hot water oil last year, and we kept it on around 68. And since we've got the wood pellets, we turned it up to 70, sometimes 72, depending on which one of us is controlling it.
65 the other day.
Okay, so the question was, where do you keep your thermostat now? They have wood pellets 70 as opposed to when they had oil 68. So.
Square feet.
Okay, more bulk options. Well, and here we go. Here's our North Brookfield custom build. That holds about 5 ton of pellets, we're thinking. You can see the supply and return down to a, now, there are 3 of these pickup heads in the bottom of this bin. And you can see that the bin slants down so that the pellets come down to a collection spot where these pick them up and bring them into a distribution box, which then sends them to the back of the boiler. Okay, so this is a system that was installed here for the Alfreds here in North Brookfield. Okay, so that's a custom build like the European design. Now, if you wanted to build a more rectangular bin that was flat, you know that you're losing capacity when you create a funneling to bring the pellets down. So if you wanted to use that space for storing pellets, you could have as many as 8 of these pickup heads on the floor of your bin that would pick up these and bring them to the collection box and then to be sent. Now, this is a system that we have 2 boilers in Cascade. You can see the boiler and the pickup side, the bin side here, and they each have their own storage. And you can see this is an opening where you can get in and work, clean out fines that might accumulate in there over time. But you do have to have some kind of a way to access your bin to, you know, get out pellets that might not be in good condition. It's recommended that you clean the fines, which are the sawdust, that you'll get them with pellets over time. Every bag has a certain amount of this dust, fines, pellets that have started to come apart. And so when you deliver them in bulk, you will get a few more than maybe you got in the bags, unless the bags were handled a lot. So the more you handle pellets, like anything, the more they'll break down. So this is a delivery that was made this fall to a customer. You can see the pellet trucks, much like a grain truck. Okay, they work like grain trucks, but they use pneumatics. They're not using augers, okay, because augers will have a tendency that big to damage the pellets, so they really blow them in. And so there's a hose running too. Now, this is a cutaway here for our North Brookfield bin at the Alfreds. There's a supply and a return. When you have a bin that's sealed, you have to be able to get the air out. It's much like your oil, much like your oil tank. You have to have a vent, okay? Otherwise, you keep pressurizing, this thing's going to blow up. So that's what the return is for, with a solid bin, metal or wood. Okay, so you can see that these blue hoses come off the truck. You can't see the truck in this picture, but they come off. And that hose is just shunting away the fines that'll come out. Okay, here's another situation here. This is a fabric bin inside, okay, and it doesn't need, is this a fabric? No, it's not a fabric bin inside. Yeah, and so it doesn't need a return because they can breathe, okay? But another situation, this is a Windhager tank, and it's blowing the pellets in, probably at its maximum. That looks like you're probably somewhere around 80 feet. So that's another thing to consider. If you're gonna do bulk, you've got to have an access point for the truck. These trucks can be very heavy, and so if you have a driveway that's kind of mushy, you don't want the truck on that driveway. Better to access from the road, and even if your driveway's okay, you've got to have, you know, a point where we can reach to fill the bin. Okay, no more than 80 feet.
If you can put an oil truck in your driveway, you should be able to put that in your driveway.
This will be a little bit heavier. These will hold, we're in for getting one that'll hold about 15 ton. So it's going to be a little heavier than an oil truck, probably 10,000 pounds more.
So does that mean you're getting in the pellet delivery
Bulk
business?
pellet
Because right
delivery.
now, who's delivering in this area?
We have a company out of New Hampshire that delivers for the bins that we've installed. Lime Green, they're called, so you can look them up. And they get the New England pellets out of Jaffrey. So the Jaffrey mill for New England pellets has pretty much been converting over to bulk delivery. So they have a big hopper, the truck pulls underneath, they fill up the truck with 15 tons, and then they go off and deliver. And they blow it in. So New England Wood Pellets has been a big, you know, supporter of this for me, because they want to see more bulk. And they sell a lot of bulk to Western Mass. There's a company called Sandry Oil out there, or Energy now, I think, and they do a lot of bulk. So this is slowly coming south. The bulk is big in the northern New England states currently.
On a bulk system like that, in a day like this, when humidity is about 99, do these things pick up a goodly amount of dampness in them? Right? No? Okay. Who
Maybe,
wants to talk?
Woody, you wanna answer this question?
No, I wanted to know if you were,
Wait a minute, we have someone from New England Wood Pellets here. I'm sorry, I did not introduce him. I didn't catch you when you came in, Woody. I'm sorry.
Well, pellets are very dense,
yeah, oh yeah.
and so unless you've got water that's really dripping on them,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
gonna hold together.
Stay pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't know, you know, you like to say wood, you like to suck up, like to say.
But they're very dense.
More like that, the stuff you do your countertops out of, like compressed wood.
It's
Yeah.
very compressed.
Yeah.
And very dry, actually.
So in transition, there's not a problem. I mean, they can stay outside. They're bagged so that they can stay outside through the winter or whatever. They do have a little bit of breathing to the bags to let whatever out, but they can stay outside all winter and not have a problem. But thanks for answering that, Woody. I'm sorry I didn't introduce you. So here's another bulk delivery setup. You can see the return here. Okay, the truck making the delivery. And it is a 4-inch hose. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mark for emissions. Big question.
Yeah, so that's this gentleman here with Washington. So this is where the government gets involved. Basically, origin is the smokers, the outdoor wood boilers. That's basically the reason why we get more and more these stringent regulations. I'm all for tougher and tougher regulations because it gives a better end product to the customer. If you burn wood, you see smoke. That's all energy that's up in the air. Smoke is gas that you could burn. That's heat. Also, to come back to a traditional wood stove, the gases that go up the stack, they are like 600-700 degrees hot. That's all energy that's down the drain. So this is all about it. The lower these emissions, these are particulate, the same with CO, the same with dust and dust. In European measurement, this is what we use here in the pounds per million BTU. 1 million BTU is about 3.25 bags of pellets. That's 1 billion BTU of energy, of heat. This appliance, roughly 0.01 to 0.02 pounds per million BTU on dust. So that's very, very little. If you go slide down. This is a list of currently certified EPA or qualified EPA hydronic wood and pellet boilers. Yeah, it's not very clear, sorry, but the best ones are around 0.04, so that's about double of the one you see here, and there's only a few. And then after 10 appliances, you are already at 0.16. So that's going to be the new requirement, I believe. Next year, there will be the new requirement. So the tougher you set those regulations, the more you're using your energy, your fuel source. The more you get out of it, the more money is going to be in your house to heat your house to keep you comfortable. Okay. So yeah, you can go on with that. Efficiency. So this appliance, so the BioWin, has around 84 to 86% efficiency. Why these two numbers here? The one we use here is measured with the what's it called? The higher heating value of the wood pellets, and then there's also a lower heating value. The difference is if you take the energy needed to drive off the moisture content in the pellets or in the wood, if you take that into account or not. The Europeans measure with this. Here in North America, we use this value. So 84 to 86% efficiency versus your oil boiler, 82 to 75. I think over. When you look over a year, an oil boiler is very, very inefficient. You're not getting to that 75 because in summer it probably drops down to, I don't know, very low. It kicks in, gives the full blast, and then a minute or two later it kicks out. So it's not very efficient. So there is a gain here of 15%. Just a top of the line pellet boiler versus an average 10-year, 12-year old oil boiler. For the people that want to know some more on these definitions, I'm not going to get into detail here, but it's basically the fuel, the moisture content in the fuel that makes the difference.
Do we have that information here?
We can provide that. It's not in there, but we can provide it.
I'll put it on my website.
Hardwood or softwood, that's the difference there? Some pellets are
No,
softwood?
yeah.
Blend?
What's the makeup of those pellets?
I-
What is the makeup of those pellets? What kind of wood are they using?
Yeah.
Woody, can you help me out here?
The pellets that New England Wood Pellet makes up in Jaffrey, we're about a 90% hardwood, 10% softwood.
Just blend.
It's blend.
As I told you before, there is maintenance to be done on these units. Very little, but there is some. Right, Mark? Mark's had his in since October. I think we cleaned it once so far. So that's not bad. Those of you who have a pellet stove, you know, you clean your pellet stove every week. So this is, a very sound unit. There is ash will collect here. It basically cleans itself. There's a little device here that will scrub the burn pot because it's very important that air access the pellets. And so if any kind of ash or clinkers, we call clinkers, the buildup, the hardened buildup, if any of that blocks the air holes, then it isn't as efficient. Okay, it's going to burn yellow. It's not going to burn clean. So before and after every startup, this thing cleans itself, and it also cleans the heat exchanger on the back side. Now the ash drops down and is collected in the bottom, and there's an auger system that will pull it into a bin down below. So you can see, so those of you in the front, you can see there's a little wheel here that's going to break down the ash, drop it down so that the auger can pull it into a bin on this side. right here. So that's the bin, and that will hold about 3 tons worth of pellets, ash from about 3 tons worth of pellets. So, that's the automatic. There's a lot of automatic here between cleaning the heating surfaces, ash removal, and then the feed system is here. So that's the automatic side. There's a picture of what you see here. It's on wheels. You can just roll it out, take it to your favorite spot in the back of the yard and dump it out. It's
Into the
organic.
airplane, carry on.
You can use it in your garden. I think that's what, phosphorus.
Yes, includes the gardens.
Yeah. So another picture with some ash in it, kind of a grayish ash that you'll see.
And you can see the 2 compartments. So the left one, the bigger one, is the
This is
ashes
the burn
out of the
pot.
firebox. The left one is from the cleaning from the heat exchanger. So there's almost nothing in there.
And the heat exchanger is pretty critical because you don't want ash buildup on that so that the heat does not access the water in the boiler and make it less efficient. So it's really cleaning the majority of the ash on the burn pot side.
What I'm trying to do here in this spreadsheet is based on 1,000 gallons of oil. So if you have a home and you consume 1,000 gallons of oil during a year, okay? With oil at $3.67 or with wood pellets at $2.67 a ton. With oil it would cost you this, $3,670, just by switching to a different fuel. The fuel, you will save basically almost 40% just by switching to a pellet fuel. Just cost of the fuel. Then, yes, Bo? When you take also into account the higher efficiency of the boiler, of the 15% we saw earlier, you're already up to 54. So for 1,000 gallons of oil, by switching to pellets, at these costs, on 1 year, will save you close to $2,000. Yeah.
Is domestic hot water hooked up in there anyway?
Yep.
Oh.
Indirect.
Yeah.
The system you have currently, baseboard, indirect domestic hot water, everything can stay. Basically, just take the old oil boiler out, put a pellet boiler in, or you keep the oil boiler and you put this one in tandem. So what you save, 2,000 a year, over 5, 10,000, over 20 years, 40, over 25, 50,000. So that's, again, based on 1,000 gallons. If you only consume 500 gallons, it's half of all this. If you consume 2,000, it's double.
What do you guess the lifetime of that furnace is?
25 to 30.
That furnace will last 25 to 30 years.
That's why that's the lifetime it's designed for. This is this brand here is a 92-year-old Austrian company. This model, they have roughly close to 65,000 out now, just this model in Europe, Austria, Germany, Italy, Belgium, the UK, France.
When you look at the two systems, there's about $1,000 difference between the Windhager that would not have the vac system and the one that does. Okay, so that's why we want that to explain Windhager with bags and Windhager with both.
Are those two distinct units?
Nope.
No, it's the same unit, just does not have this part on it.
Okay, so can you start with bags and add bulk later?
That's what the
That's
Alfreds did.
Alright.
The Alfreds started while their bin was being constructed.
So it's an additional $1,000 piece that you add on to it later, is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And it could be more. I mean, if you were building a bin that had more heads, you know, this is just your basic setup with
Right.
one pickup head and supply and return tubing. And then a bulk bin, generally about 3,000. Now, these are just average numbers.
Is
Depend.
this in here?
Excuse me?
Is this in the handout?
No, it's not, because there are other options. There is a pamphlet for the bins that BioWin recommends. Okay, the custom-built ones, like the rooms. Yes, they are in that brochure. And really what that is we would have a local contractor build that bin to their specifications, because it is necessary to have, you know, them built to specifications. These things are heavy, okay? You do not want to have your bin fall apart on you, okay? It really would be a mess.
No, that's one price. How many, is there only one unit, or are there different sizes with different?
There are different, you saw the options, they're metal, there are some fabric ones.
No, I'm talking about the unit. How many, you've got,
Oh, well, this is actually the middle of the road unit. I mean, you know, it's the second
no, I mean,
one up.
like BTUs, you know, different.
Yeah,
So what,
there's a smaller, I mean, basically, the footprint of this stays the same. What'll change is the burn pot, okay? This is a bigger burn pot than the smaller size. Okay, now, we don't change those, they come from Austria with the specific burn pot and it being programmed to be a certain number of BTUs within a certain range.
the
Okay.
price you're giving up there, what BTU unit is that?
89,000,
Yeah, that's the,
the biggest one, 89,000.
yeah, that would be basically this unit.
That's the
Right.
biggest, it comes, 89,000
Well,
BTU?
no,
We
there are
have bigger
bigger
ones.
ones, but for residential use, you don't need much bigger
So with
than
a
this.
house with a couple thousand square feet, like these people have, which unit do you use?
This one here. This one here, and you'll see that on, well, there are two different brochures there. There's the current residential one, which is a 2.9 to, what is that, 3.5? Is that the?
2.9 is 25 feet.
Yeah, so there's four models, 89,000 BTU, 72,000 BTU, 51,000 BTU, and 35,000 BTU. They all look the same, footprint is the same, just the two biggest ones have this size burn pot, the two smaller one have the burn pot is about half the size. And then also the heat exchanger inside is less steel for the two smaller, but they look identical. The price difference is only $200, $300. It's the same unit.
So it can be
But
all
the
sized
biggest-
up depending on what you have.
Sorry?
It can be sized up depending on what you
Yeah,
have.
sized up or sized down. Like for instance, Mark's unit we were tweaking the last 2 weeks. We put in an 51,000 BTU. That's how we started. But even in the cold period, there cold snap, it's too big. We turned it down now. A biomass appliance, the goal is to have it run as long as possible, like 2-3 hours if possible at a time. That's when it becomes the most efficient. You don't want to have it switch on for 15 minutes. It takes 10 minutes to get the fire established. So the longer you can let it run, the more efficient, and also the less wear and tear on the moving parts.
Now, one thing we haven't entered into this whole thing is thermal storage. Okay, many wood biomass systems work in conjunction with a tank, an insulated tank, that will hold water ready to be distributed for heat or hot water, a thermal storage, because it's felt that, you know, number one, these things will run a little bit better because you're cycling warmer water through. Now this thing modulates itself. Okay, this unit will not allow cold water to come in and shock it and cause condensation inside. It won't let the circulator run until it's come up to 130 degrees. And then it will let the water recirculate through to send it out, okay? Because if cold water does come in, it's going to start to condensate, and that's where you're going to get creosote and other problems. Okay, so this thing is designed to modulate itself, but also a thermal storage tank gives you a buffer. We call them buffer tanks, so that this thing is trying to come up to temperature and make enough heat to go through your baseboard. Oil, you're probably making enough heat to start warming your home within 5 minutes. This thing's going to take longer, probably going to take more like 15 or 20. So if you have that thermal storage, then you're going to immediately start getting the heater or hot water. Okay? So we have not discussed at all thermal storage, but we should.
Don't a lot of oil systems have thermal storage tanks like that?
No, we don't install thermal storage on oil tanks generally. But with the pellet systems that we installed this recently, the majority of them have thermal storage. And the reason that, well, for a lot of it was, there was a grant program. Some of you may be aware that the Department of Energy Resources last summer had a grant program to install pellet boilers in bulk. And so we had 10 customers take advantage. We put it out in our newsletter and on our website that this was happening. They gave up to $15,000 for homeowners right off the top to install a system like this. But what you had to do, they gave you $7,000 for the boiler, they gave you $3,000 for the bulk storage, they gave you $2,000 for thermal storage.
You said it too fast. I can't write that fast.
Oh, okay. Well, it's on my website. So.
I don't have a computer, I'm sorry.
This is a program,
Well, come here, there are computers here.
this is an expired program anyway.
Excuse me?
This is an expired program.
Well, yes, but I'm just saying,
Well, no, I know, but she's saying
yeah,
no.
the program is not
That ship
ongoing
has
right now,
sailed.
but
Not every year.
we're hopeful
But
that
hopefully every year,
it'll come
hopefully.
back.
Most likely, this program will be established again. So Massachusetts is trying to come up with a fund funded by utility companies to offset their CO2 gassing and so on. And there will be funds available to again come up with these type of grants on a continuous basis. That's probably the goal.
Yeah, all this money comes through the utilities. Okay, the Mass Save program, you may be familiar, their money comes through your bill. You pay into them, a certain amount of that goes into a pot that is given to people, upgrade, make their homes more efficient, and so on. They come in and bring you light bulbs and do all these nice things for you, do a free energy audit, which is required if you want to take advantage of the Department of Energy Resources grant program for installing pellet boilers. Okay, so you had to have an energy audit. So if you have not contacted Mass Save, you are a National Grid or N-Star customer, I recommend that you make that call and have an energy auditor come in, because it all starts with an energy audit. So then they gave you $2,000 for the thermal storage, and if your home in Worcester County was valued at less than, I think it was $375,000 or $350,000, you got an additional $2,000 for having, being poor, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. It's just, they called it a moderate home or whatever. You could also qualify if your income were at a certain level. But most everybody that we dealt with was able to get that $2,000 because their home was not valued more than $350,000. So most of the folks we dealt with got $14,000, but they had to put in the thermal storage, okay? So they had, generally it had to be 10 gallons for every 10,000 gallons, 10,000 BTUs, excuse me. So like somebody who had an 80,000 BTU home, the heat loss was requiring them to have 80,000, they had an 80-gallon tank. If somebody had a 120,000 BTU requirement, they had a 120-gallon tank. Okay, these are well-insulated tanks, and they'll run as long as your heat or hot water requires. So that's thermal storage. Just so you know that these systems often work in conjunction with thermal storage. Yes, Ed?
If my math is right, in order to have the storage and that put in, we're talking about 18,000. Is that correct?
Generally, 14 to 18,000 if you were going with
Yeah,
the
I
bulk.
was just going by your figures that you had there, and it added up very close to 18,000.
Thank you. And there was a nice segue. 18,000. So anyway, if you went with the bulk, on average, now these are just average prices, okay? Your home may be different. We have not talked about flue liners. Okay, we had situations where a few customers didn't have a lined chimney, so they had to get a liner in there. So there are various things that might either make this more expensive or less expensive. If there were a lot of piping upgrades, okay, this is the 4,000 that we calculated for the installation is labor and parts for piping this thing in. If your circulators are ancient, you have a lot of issues with your pipes that need to be resolved and upgraded, it might cost a bit more. Okay, so this is on average price. So you figure that when we do an oil boiler installations, typically they're $7,500. So if you look at these prices and deduct what you would have paid for replacing your oil boiler anyway, then the additional cost for going with the pellets, with the BioWind with bags, would be an additional $6,500, and with the bulk would be $10,500. So again, we're looking at, you needed to replace your oil boiler anyway, and these were the costs for putting in the BioWind system either way, bag or bulk. So this is what additional it would cost you to go to pellets. Okay, so then, when's it paid back? So let's say you went with bags, you figure $2,000 savings per year, it would be 3.25 years as a payback for switching over to pellets above and beyond the oil. And then if you went with bulk, it would be 5.25 years. So it's a pretty good payback if you factor in the oil, the 7,500 that would have been for oil. You're still in the 8 to 10 year range, and this thing's going to last you for 25 to 30 years. Now these things are well built. You saw the igniter. That thing has a lifetime warranty. This is the auger motor. Okay, this thing is built to last. You won't have to replace it. So the Austrians have made, the Windhager people have made an excellent product here. A lot of technology, very efficient. So your savings begin immediately. So over the lifetime of the pellet boiler, if you're saving $2,000 a year, I think we've pretty much seen this, but $50,000 over 25 years. With bags, $43,500, and with bulk, $39,500. So that's a lot of savings over 25 years.
So again, this is based on, all these numbers you see here is based on 1,000 gallons of oil.
In today's prices.
In today's prices. But if it's 500 gallons, the numbers will not be so good, the payback. But if it's 2,000 gallons a year, the numbers will look very good. So you're not talking 3 years, it's a year and a half. So the more oil you burn, it's gonna pay back much faster when you switch.
So we're back to the North Brookfield example now. These are actual numbers here now. 900 gallons is what was used to heat this home. It's about an 1,800 square foot home. And the cost of the oil based on 367 a gallon is $3,303. And we're using actual numbers here now. The cost of the wood pellets, $2,000. And so estimated savings, $1,293. Where do we get that 39% from? Is that the difference between the
Oil and pellets?
oil and pellets? So really, we calculate 54% savings. So they're not quite as good as 2,000, but still quite good for the investment, about $1,800 there they can expect for annual savings. And Mark, how many pellets have you used since October? I think it was what, not even 2 ton yet, right?
Right, 1.7.
1.7 tons.
So that's $500, a little bit.
Yeah, somewhere close to that, maybe. So, and I'd have to say that the Alfreds are pretty much the ideal home and the ideal owners of this system. You know, Mark he's got the manual there and he's constantly checking it out and, you know, right there when we're down there servicing the thing or installing, and, you know, was involved in the cleaning, so, you know, the home is tight, maxed out insulation-wise. We just bumped it down, as Mark was saying, to 35,000 BTUs to heat that home. Yeah, Mark?
Someone asked earlier about makeup air. Our house is really tight, and the basement where the furnace is pretty small. And we go in and out of the basement maybe twice a day, and we've never had any issues with the furnace choking or anything or smoking.
Okay, so that, just to repeat, somebody asked about outside air, getting air to that unit, and as Mark said, I don't know if you remember the picture, but that's not a large space in their cellar where the boiler is, and they've had no problems. They don't open doors a whole lot. They've had no problems with air for this unit supply.
How big a pellet storage area do you have?
Mine's around 5.5 tons.
But just in terms of dimensions?
Oh, it's 5 by 8.
And I think it's not totally square, but I think it's about 7, you probably have about, what, 7, 8 feet of height. So easily 6 before it comes down to the funneling.
5 by 6 by 8?
And then, you know, probably, what, about 2 feet below that, so half of that. Yeah, I'd add another, just for averages, 5 by 7 by 8 would be safe. We did a calculation, I think, but our calculation was off. We thought it was gonna be 6.5, but we got 5 ton in it, so.
Is the cellar warm?
Our cellar's warm because I haven't insulated my pipes, like Mark suggested I do.
Okay, so, just to repeat, the cellar is warm because the pipes are not insulated. If you were to insulate the pipes, it would be a lot cooler, but, gee, I think you keep it about, must be at least 68, 70 in there.
So the boiler, this biobin, it's cold on the outside. Unlike an oil boiler, it's hot. If you have an oil boiler that prepares domestic hot water in July for you, it's going to be very hot in your cellar, so you probably need an air conditioner there to keep the cellar cold. So this is cold, the boiler is cold, so if you don't insulate your pipes, that's the only heat you will lose in your basement.
Well, and the flue pipe will give off a little bit of heat, but think of this much like a pellet stove. You can touch most any side of your pellet stove most all the time except for the glass, because it's blowing the heat out of it. So this is pretty much the same. It stays very cool. You can touch the jacket of this thing. Yes, sir?
In the ice storm in 2008, we got 4 inches or more of water in the basement when we lost power in the sump pump plant. What happens if something like that happens? Can this be built raised or?
Yeah, put it on concrete.
Yeah. You would definitely want to be prepared for a situation like that. You can't have your pellets get wet, because then you're going to have to clean them all out.
I assume you could have it built up underneath though,
Sure.
a way.
Oh yeah, yes you can. Yes you can.
In conjunction with that same question, in the summer months, when you're not running that thing, mine is a deep cellar. It was originally a drywall cellar, we've since pointed it out, but nevertheless, humidity tends to build in, even though we put a dehumidifier in it. To what extent does that become an issue as far as something like this is concerned? I mean, how much relative humidity can we get away with and still have things running reasonably efficiently.
Okay, I'm gonna paraphrase that question and then refer to Woody Keeney from New England Wood Pellets. The question is, what about in the summer when these pellets are sitting there in might be a humid cellar?
Could be.
Will they keep? Have you seen any issues with that, Woody?
No, we haven't. The main thing is if you have dripping water, that would be an issue, but
So you have 65–70% relative humidity?
should be just fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, we have not seen any problems ourselves. I think that the New England pellets hold together very well. We did have a damp cellar with another brand of pellets that over time got, went bad. They started to break up. They started to expand. You'll be able to tell. You can reach in and you can see them. They're expanding. They may not have yet turned. Yeah, just from the dampness, but we have not seen that with New England's. Okay, so now this is on a heat curve. Okay, your coldest month is January, and so you're using 96% of the BTU rating of that. And so we've got this figured on 34,000 BTUs, 34,120. So as we go down, you need less heat. Now, I think Mark's example of having this thing run a long time, the analogy is highway city driving. Okay? So you're on the highway, you're at one speed, and you're saving money. That's the best whenever you hear mileage figures for cars, it's always highway miles they're telling you. Okay? Not back and forth, stop and go. Okay? And that's the same thing with the thermostat. The longer you leave it on a setting, the more you're going to save. So if you set it down at night for 8 or 10 hours, that's okay. It is going to cost a little more to bring it back up, but not as much as having not set it back. So you will save. But the more you set it back and the longer it takes to bring it back up, then that becomes less of a cost savings. So with these, our goal is to get them to run at max efficiency throughout the year. And as you can see, when we go into June and July, the thing's barely running for the hot water. This has hot water load on it. Okay, and then when we get back into December, we're up to 79%. Is there anything you wanted to say on this, Mark?
Yeah, so these are the months and the heating degree days for this area. I don't remember what weather station I used here, but it was very nearby. So this is statistically, in January you will use 19% of your annual oil. That's January, December 16, February 16, so that's it. So you can translate that in gallons of oil if you know your oil usage for the year, and you can translate that in BTUs you need to cover your heat loss of the house. So for Mark's house, even in the coldest month here, so 32,000, that's about, I don't know, it's 7?
7 something.
Yeah. So close to 33,000 is lower than the maximum output or the nominal output of this appliance. But in the other months you use much less. So then it becomes very important that this unit can modulate. It doesn't, it gets feedback from the water, how hot or how cold it's coming back. So it turns down the feed rate of the pellets. It adjusts the heat output to what really the house needs. And that's where most of the savings on burning of pellets results in. So the modulation, you're not always at full capacity at this number, because you only need that in January. In those months you don't need it. So modulation is very important. One more thing maybe we can address. There is still a rebate program out right now, but it's for commercial. Or schools and city buildings or non-profit organizations.
You want me to speak?
Yeah.
Okay. The Department of Energy Resources has a grant program. It's 3-phase. There's the feasibility study, there is the design, and then there's the installation. For if you are working in a program or a municipality and they want to study changing to pellets, because this is residential, but there are systems that are much larger that can do buildings of this size and larger. Okay, often it's putting several of them together or going to another model entirely. There are some brochures for some bigger models there. Okay, 25, 35, and I think 60 is the highest, right? Kilowatt there. So anyway, if you're involved with a group that would like to look into making application, they'll pay up to 75% of the cost. It can start with a feasibility study. Will it work? Okay, it'll also cover design. So if it's determined that it can work, then a design can be made. And then, of course, the installation. So if you know anybody or would like to discuss this, I'll be around after. Be happy to. We work with a man named Charlie Niebling, who can help us in the feasibility side of that, and of course Mark in the design side of that whole grant program. And they've got like $5 million to give away. Now, where do they get this money? They get the money from the utilities. The utilities have to meet a certain emission standard, and when they can't, they have to pay this money in fines, I guess you would call it. And so the money goes into a pool to be used for clean energy, alternative energy. So when you see grants for solar or for geothermal, that's pretty much where most of this money is coming from. It's not the government in the goodness of their heart giving you the money. The government started the process rolling, okay, by requiring the utilities to be clean. But if they can't meet those quotas, then there's money to be paid so that we all can be a little more clean. That's how it works, okay? So, we're back to welcome. If anyone has a question, now would be the time. Or you know, if you want to ask with the whole group, we'll be around.
Maybe before the questions, for the ones that are interested, we have power to this unit, so later on we can show you some functions. Just how the cleaning of the burn pot works, the noise maybe of the feed turbine, so most of the functions can be demonstrated here.
Okay, we'll be doing that after we take questions and we do the drawing. If anyone has not yet filled in, if you're interested in having a $2,000 discount, we're going to take a drawing. We do have cards in the back there you could do, and we'll draw them to see who gets that. So if you're interested in having one of these installed and having $2,000 off the installation fee, fill out one of those cards and I'll draw it. No obligation. Question?
As far as the bulk storage, can the metal container be used outside?
You can have outside storage. Yes, you can. This particular bin, no. But there are outside storage options. We have not shown any of them. Most people, you'll use them with commercial, like the big silos. Sometimes when you see a silo to the side of the building, it might be wood pellets. So typically they're used in commercial. They're not so pretty, it's in your yard.
Well, this would be, I was thinking of under the deck.
Yep.
With an access to fill it right in the side of the deck.
Yeah. There certainly are options for outside storage, yes.
Underground options too.
Well, underground would not be a good option, right?
But that would be, under a deck, would be a custom built.
Page 9, by the way, of the brochure, does show an earth tank.
Yep.
Right.
So I would imagine, I don't know how much dimension you would need for that, or what you would need.
Depending on the size. I think there are various sizes, but typically the same as your, in-home.
Presumably.
Yeah, pretty much. Other questions?
I want to confirm that quote you gave for the 9895, that was for the largest unit on your demonstration?
That was for this unit, which is not the largest unit, but it's the second size up.
The 72,000 BTU, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what this unit will do. Do 72,000.
There is only $200 or $300 difference in the 4 models,
Oh, okay.
because they are identical. It's just a computer board that's different than a little bit smaller or bigger burn pot.
And the heat exchangers are a
Yeah.
little bit different size.
In the brochure, it's the center one, is it not? One on page,
In the brochure, it's the 260, 26 kilowatt, that's this one that you see there.
put my kilowatt, yeah, okay.
Yes?
The current grants, you said, are just commercial. The
Sorry.
grants that are available now are just commercial.
Right now, currently, it's just commercial, and it's for nonprofit schools, municipalities.
Are they offering any low interest or zero interest loans?
Not at the current time. And they didn't. That was not part of this grant program. Mass Save are the people that do that offer 0% loans. But they have only offered those kind of loans for oil-to-oil replacement. Okay, it wasn't, or gas-to-gas. They did not offer those loans for converting to pellets. We asked them if they would consider it. So we're hopeful that eventually that would be the, what will happen, that if somebody wants to convert to pellets, that they could get the additional money above and beyond the grant, if there were a grant program, could be covered in a 0% loan.
So do you think there's going to be another grant program like the one that they had before?
They're studying last year's. Right now, what they're doing is they're studying how last year's program went and trying to decide how they're going to go about another one. So I can't tell you that they're going to. We're hopeful. We believe they will, because they've got money to spend. They have this money that needs to be used for these alternative purposes. They put it in geothermal. There is a geothermal component to this commercial grant, and there's a what?
Solar?
No, it's not solar. It's a heat pump version too.
Heat pump,
So yeah, so they're looking into these alternatives and they're funding them mostly right now. This was called a pilot grant program. The small pellet pilot grant program is what this was called. So it was a pilot. They wanted to see if there was going to be a demand, which there was. And then they wanted to see which units performed the best. And I'll tell you, this unit is by far the most economical and best performing of all of the units that were in this grant program. There are some other models, some other units that were much more expensive than this. When you get into something that's this technologically advanced and you don't have to maintain it, there can be some pretty pricey units here. And this one is priced, it may seem like a lot of money, but the payback, you do get, there is a payback time within your lifetime. Where with some of the other units, they were, and some of the grants, some of the people passed on the grants because when they looked at it, they were looking at $25,000 to install a unit. And, they were saying, well, this is, even with the grant, this is too much money out of our pocket.
And on average, if you look at geothermal, Bob, the average is close to 50 grand.
Oh, God, yeah, we're talking 30, 50.
And their efficiency really declines once the temperature reaches 20 degrees. You have to have some kind of backup thing.
Well, see, that's why they're doing these as pilots. They want to see how this works here. They're having people that are, being the guinea pigs, saying, yes, we'll do this. So here are some guinea pigs right here on the BioWind, and, Mark, what do you have to say about it? I mean, can you say a few words about how this has worked for you?
We love ours. Someone asked earlier about how much noise it made. Other than the vacuum unit, my coffee pot makes more noise than that thing. And that oil burner that we took out was only maybe 8 years old, and it screamed like a banshee compared to this thing. Very efficient, very smart. It's kind of like having a new car. I go down there every day and I dust it off and I check all the stats on it. Yeah. And, tells you exactly, down to the third decimal point, how many tons of pellets you burned, how many hours it's going to be before then you need to clean it again. The ash thing to take out anything is very easy. It's like a carry-on luggage thing. It's got wheels on the back of it. You just pull one handle, pull it out, roll it outside, dump it, bring it back in, plug it back in. We just love it.
Yes, sir.
How often do you have to make deliveries? Like once if you have a hopper?
Well, so far it's been once to them, and I don't know when we're gonna be back to your place, probably.
Hopefully in summer.
Yeah. But, you know, we've got some people that we've delivered to now twice with a 3.5 ton bin. Mark's is a 5, okay? And I think we put all 5 in there, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, he can go longer between fills. But of course, he's got 2 factors in his favor. One is the house does not require a whole lot of heat input, so he's not burning a lot of pellets. And the other is he's got a big bin. He's got 5 tons there.
And will you be offering a payment plan like every month the way we do at Boyle?
When we get into it, yes. I mean, we're not into bulk yet because we're contracting, subbing out this to a company in New Hampshire that goes through Jaffrey at New England Wood Pellets' mill, picks up the pellets and then comes and delivers them to our customers. Yeah, but eventually we hope to pick that up. We're in for a grant ourselves to get a bulk pellet truck, to get some help in a facility to store the pellets and then to deliver them with a truck.
So the first round, when you first get it, how much are you gonna have to put out for the pellets on top of all of it to fill up the hopper?
The cost of the pellets, you mean?
Yeah, for the first time delivery, if you get the, whatever you said, the huge.
Well,
thing.
if you're filling them up, you know, say 3.5 ton bin, you're probably gonna put about, I think $900 I think was a first bill, but of course 5 ton was a lot more than that. And they were over 1,000. So, but again, that's lasted. Most people are just started on their second deliveries, and we installed a lot of these units in August. So a lot of the units we've installed already have been in since August. 2 deliveries. Yes?
Is there a cost associated with coming to the house to sit down and compare what we have to where we might like to go?
No. We give free estimates, so be happy to come and look that over with you. And again, this is a big decision to make. You need to look at, will this fit? Will this work in my home? You know, if you have a steam system, then, you know, you have to change out from steam. If you already have a forced hot water system, then, you know, you're ahead of the game. And then do you have the room for bulk? Where would it go? And that sort of thing. So yeah, we got to come in and do some measuring, and then we can give you a proper estimate for how, you know, we work. Check and see that the flue is lined, you know, all those issues. Is there truck access?
How many types of zones can you run off that? Currently we have 3 different zones in there. Does it matter?
No, not at all. The Alfreds have 4.
Could you add zones then, like there are a couple of areas?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, yeah, definitely. Just it means adding on to your manifold.
Just out of curiosity, what's the cost difference right now between bulk, pellets, and bagged?
Well, bulk are actually a little more expensive right now because there just isn't,
Right.
you know, there aren't the number of people that have bulk. As we go more, we expect that price to be better, but you know, it is quite an expense to, you know, for this truck and all these, but it's, you know, super convenient. You're not handling bags.
Right.
So you really have to look at that as being the best thing. But for now, the price is a bit more expensive. I think we're $280 a ton with the bulk right now.
Does that include delivery?
Yeah, that's $280 a ton delivery.
Because typically when you're buying pellets by the ton, you have to pay a delivery charge on top of that price.
That's right. That's
So
right.
it brings it up.
Yeah, you know, it's a bit more. It's not outrageously more, but it's a bit more. And we expect that as more people, you know, what Windhager wants to do is really saturate this area with their units, okay? We have a plan to install 25 of these each year for the next 3 years. So, and then there's the commercial side of it. We also plan to pursue commercial installations. So with all of that, there's gonna be a lot more bulk to be delivered here, and so we're hopeful that we'll have a truck and a storage facility an hour away from Jaffrey. We're gonna be set to deliver more bulk and therefore bring down the price.